Good morning, St. John's. I hope everyone is doing well. In this video today, I want to talk about the most basic building block of our faith. And then I want to talk about, at St. John's, one of the things that we do to make sure that this stays in the forefront of our hearts and our minds. So this past Sunday in my sermon, I talked about going back to the basics. And if we were to do that with our faith, to the most basic building block, who Jesus was, what he taught, what he was passionate about, where he landed his messages, at the end of the day, it comes down to one concept. And I'm sure you've already guessed it: love. Someone once asked Jesus what the most important commandment was, giving Jesus an opportunity to boil it all down. And Jesus said to him, love. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Elsewhere, Jesus says that his new commandment that he gave his disciples is that we love one another as Jesus modeled for us, as he loved us. And in this way, everyone will know that we belong to Jesus, that we are followers of Christ. So it comes down to love. This is the most basic building block. I love how the Apostle Paul makes this even more acute. I mean, he is like wanting to make sure that we don't miss this. He says that if you have the most amazing faith, I mean, the kind of faith where you could move a mountain, and you don't have love, you have nothing. So there's no questions about this. There's no confusion. Let's just make sure that you understand that love is not an addendum to our faith. It's where it all begins. So it starts with love. If we lose focus of love, lose sight of that, we lose sight of everything. When you look at the church, and historically, and you look at what the church is focused on, even though we teach about love, talk about love, we tend to focus so much about right theology, right practice, what the right way is, and we've shoved Christianity down people's throats. When you think about the Crusades, and you think about colonialism, and you think about even today, the way Christians often debate with other religions, setting ourselves up against others as better. And I think religions, by the way, are notorious when it comes to shoving kind of their own theology down other people's throats, feeling like there's one way and it's our way, the right way. We end up having a much harder time keeping the focus on what does it mean to love my neighbor as myself, and much more on how do I get my neighbor to believe what I believe. Those are two very different things, which brings us back to why Jesus and Paul and others in the New Testament felt like they needed to keep coming back to this idea where they're saying essentially, don't miss this. It's about love. If you start with that as your most basic building block and you keep coming back to that, then you're going to stay on the right path. Now, what we do at St. John's, one of the many things to keep the focus on this most basic building block is, in the last couple of years, we've taken our liturgy on Sundays and we've introduced the words of 1 Corinthians 13 in what we now call the Agape Creed. Now, typically in the church, there is a creed of some kind. If you open the Book of Common Prayer, you'll see that the Nicene Creed is prescribed for Sunday Eucharist. And the Nicene Creed, if you look at it, and we can talk more about this, I've actually re-recorded this message multiple times today because I went off on a tangent related to the Nicene Creed. But let me just say very simply that if you look at the Nicene Creed, you'll notice that it goes from Jesus' birth, believed he was born of the Virgin Mary and made man, and then it goes straight to his crucifixion. He was crucified under Pontius Pilate. The Nicene Creed says absolutely nothing about Jesus' life. Now, there's a reason for this, because the primary focus of the Nicene Creed was to help root out church heresies. So the Nicene Creed is really a statement related to where most of the conflicts were theologically in the early church. But there wasn't a lot of debate around Jesus' teachings. Jesus taught about love and justice and caring for one another, and he talked about the kingdom of God. And because there wasn't a lot of conflict around those things, everybody believed those things, it didn't end up in the Nicene Creed, in the statement of Orthodox faith. So what happens when a church, week after week, speaks the Nicene Creed, but keeps absent, because the Nicene Creed does this, keeps absent from that statement the basic tenets of the faith that Jesus actually taught us, how he taught us to live, an absence of anything around the idea of love. What happens is our own theology subconsciously ends up skewing toward this, what I was talking about, orthodox theology or truth. That almost starts to become like the most important thing. Whereas I believe that if Jesus were to write a statement or a creed, he would focus much more on the things that he actually taught, which is love God, love your neighbor as yourself, do justice, care for others as you would care for those who are closest to you, love your enemies. Like that it would be much closer to that. So what we've done is we've introduced the words of 1 Corinthians 13 as a way of balancing out these creeds. And so you'll notice that one Sunday we'll have the Nicene Creed, the next Sunday we'll have the Agape Creed. And the Agape Creed, as you know now, comes from 1 Corinthians 13, and it's just the beautiful words that remind us of what love actually is. That love, when we push ourselves to be kind, even in those moments where we feel like we want to be unkind, that is love. When we feel super impatient, and someone cuts you off on the road and you just want to lash out, that patience, that is love. When we choose not to envy, not to boast, when we don't celebrate injustice and we rejoice with the truth, those are all practical ways in which we are learning to love. So love is where it all begins. It's the basic building block. It is one of our main creeds. And I want to invite you to keep your eye out for a workshop that Sarah's going to be doing soon on the creeds and developing your own personal creed. It's a really cool thing. There are so many parts of our faith that we want to live into. And the most important thing is that we start with the right foundation, the right building block, which is love. Anywhere we go from there, friends, anywhere we go from there will be the right direction because we're building on the right foundation. God bless you, St. John's. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday as we continue to grow in community in this beautiful journey of faith and life. See you soon.